Hi, Nicky here, Naturopath and certified Fast Like a Girl fasting coach and EFT tapping practitioner. I'm coming to you today from my clinic. We're not walking today. I've already done my exercise and a swim in the ocean, so I'm feeling really fresh. And what I wanted to do today is cover off 5 big mistakes that most people do when they're embarking on fasting, whether or not they're doing it for the first time or they've been doing it for a while and not getting the results. Because with everything that you look at when you dive into the fasting world, if you're doing it correctly and well and consistently, you're going to get results. You just simply cannot not get results. The human body is actually designed to fast. We are genetically wired there, and if you are reading any of Dr. Mindy Pelz's work, she's my mentor, and particularly her latest book, Eat Like a Girl, which is available on my website if you'd like to grab a copy. Wonderful recipes in there. How to break a fast is in there. How to manage your fasting around your hormones is in there, and also around exercise, etc. I just wanted to come to you today though and talk to you about the 5 mistakes I find most people will make when they're embarking on fasting. Number 1, they don't plan to fast. So generally when most people I talk to in the fasting world, or they say they're doing regular fasts, generally what I'm finding when I dive into that conversation a little bit more and dig a little deeper is that they're actually kind of falling into fasting. They're not planning on it. They're not creating a rhythm or a routine. And for females particularly, our bodies are built around rhythm and routine. If you're in a menopausal state, you've been doing rhythms for 30 to 40 years. When you think about your menstrual cycle, if you've been interrupting that along the way, then your rhythms being interrupted over that hormonal career is likely to be one of the main reasons why your menopause and your perimenopause symptoms are troubling you now. So if you don't plan your fasts and you don't plan to fast and you don't give it some thought in terms of this week I'm going to do this many hours on this day around this part of my cycle or around my exercise or around my events or around my family traditions, then you are going to fall over in your results. It's 100% guaranteed. Planning your fast is key here, and planning to also track what you're doing with your food and also some of your results that we talk about in our fasting programs, our coaching programs. It's really important to keep an eye on those as well, particularly when you're getting to really sort of pull this apart and do it correctly, properly, in my opinion, and also following Dr. Mindy Pelz's Fast Like a Girl principles, which work. Number 2, they don't track their macros. They're not looking at how much protein, fats, and carbohydrates, net carbohydrates and fiber. Net carbohydrates, remember, is the amount of carbs less the amount of fiber in that food. And of course, we're talking about man-made carbs not being part of this. So rice, breads, flours, etc. We're looking at more your nature's carbs. So your sweet potatoes, and your whole grains that haven't really been tampered with too much after they've been harvested. So if you're not tracking your macros, you really don't have any idea around whether or not your body is going to maintain your fasting results in the eating window. So you can be doing this wonderful job of fasting and then eating in the eating window and really blowing the whole potential for your system to actually do the job that fasting is intended to do. And that is to keep you in a metabolic adaptive state when you're eating and then when you're fasting as well. So if you're not tracking your macros, you're going to struggle with getting some of those results. Really, really important. One of the best apps I've found to help with that has been the Carb Manager app. It's very easy to work with. You can plug it in, you can keep an eye, you can also build your meals over the day and get a bit of an idea as to what you're doing. And when you do plug in the meal that you're currently eating into the Carb Manager app, you'll see whether or not your macros are already catching up to you halfway through the day, and then you can make modifications for the other half of the day to keep inside that macro limit. How do you know what your macro limits are? Well, that's what something that I, as your coach, will help work out with you. Number 3, they haven't tested their glucose or their ketones, particularly the waking glucose and ketone readings, and also postprandial or after you've eaten. So as a fasting coach and in the Fast Like a Girl protocols, we really do focus on getting you testing, having a look at your glucose, getting to know what spikes your glucose, getting to know how well your glucose returns to that baseline in the morning on waking without anything else in your body in terms of foods and hydration other than a bit of water. But essentially we actually want you to test really clean straight up after you wake, so that we get a really good baseline level. And particularly we don't want you exercising before you do your glucose readings as well. So if you're not testing your glucose and your ketones, you really don't know whether or not your body is actually reaching in the fasted state and getting you into that ketosis or ketone production process, which indicates that your body's now burning fats. That's what we're looking for in the fasted state. But also we're using those readings to make sure that you're safe, to make sure that if your glucose and your ketones are giving us some out of range readings, we know that we can do some things to guide you into either breaking the fast or utilizing supplement hacks or food hacks that don't break the fast but help to manage those glucose and ketone readings, keeping you in the fasted state if it's appropriate to do so. So as a coach, we're monitoring that with you. It's really, really important to keep an eye on that. And in fact, two of the most important ways to measure your results is in your ketone and glucose readings and your waist circumference. We're not really looking at weight in most of our fasting, Kate. That comes later. We're really looking to see if your metabolic system is adapting in the fasted state and in the eating window by measuring your glucose and your ketones. If we're missing measuring those, we're really missing some valuable information about whether or not your body is actually adapting in the fasted state. And that's what you're doing all this hard work for. Number four, they're fasting too long at the wrong part of the cycle. Oh my Lord. So many of my ladies who like to jump in and just give something a go, they're very adventurous, but they find that in doing this at the wrong time of the cycle will create some problems with the following cycle. And one of my coaching clients right now has just discovered this, and it's been pure magic, pure gold information for her, because now she's in control. She knows that if she fasts at the right time of the cycle and she pushes into some of those long fasts because she's ready to do so at the right time of her cycle and rests in the other correct part of the cycle. Now, this conversation is really interesting, but she has found that from one cycle to the next, there's been a massive difference in terms of premenstrual pain, heaviness in the cycle, and any of the other symptoms that she used to get. Now, when I presented to her the correct way to fast long in her cycle at the times that are appropriate to do so, following the Fast Like a Girl coaching programs, what she has found and what we discover, and this conversation I have very frequently with a lot of my female patients and clients, is that we've always been told to rest in the menstrual cycle time frame and go a little bit harder when you're not menstruating, so leading up to the cycle, which is exactly the opposite that we want you to do. Particularly now that we know that when you push too hard or fast too long or create too much stress in the body, which fasting can do, and so can exercise and of course stress, your cortisol levels will rise and your progesterone levels will lower. And that's going to make the next cycle far more symptomatic, painful, more uncomfortable and heavy, and potentially can mess around with the timing as well. So when I was studying naturopathy and working at a health retreat many, many years ago, it was always taught to me to rest when you're menstruating. But the opposite is actually true. So when you are pushing that little bit more when you're menstruating and resting leading up to, then you actually start getting this really different response in your system hormonally. If you're just starting to get that concept and swing things around, day 1 or 2, you might still need a little bit of a rest, but you can push it a little bit harder from 3 to 10. So it's important to get that rhythm as well. And it's important to not fast in the back end of the cycle and days 11 to 15 in a really heavy way. You really want to ease back off that. Number 5 of my top 5 mistakes that many people make when they're fasting is they're not eating enough fats, enough fiber, and in some cases enough protein, although that can be a lot easier for most people. But it's really the fats and the fibers that I find that people are not getting enough of in order to stabilize their blood glucose levels when they are eating in the eating window. So we're definitely getting too many carbs. We don't need to have as many, but we do need to have more fats and fiber. The other nutrient are minerals, particularly in the fasted state. So when you're in the fasting state. So these are the top 5 mistakes that I find really do impede progress and really do get in the way of enjoying the whole fasting experience as well. So if you're fasting correctly, you won't be doing these top 5 things. If you'd like to know more about how to fast correctly, safely, and effectively, please do reach out. We're running coaching programs at the moment. Or if you're the kind of person that's not quite comfortable in a group, we can do some one-on-one and I can get right down to the nitty-gritty of what's right for you in your fasting journey. Don't make mistakes, get on board. Fasting is great, it's fantastic, and it is doable, but it's very easy to make some errors, which will put you off. And we don't want that. We want you to enjoy the fasting journey because it's a good one. Stay in the fasting lane, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for listening.